Michael, what have you done?
I was trying to help people. But the cure. It's a curse.
Michael.
I have powers that can only be described as superhuman. But there's a cost. Now, I face a choice. To hunt and consume blood. Or die.
We all have monsters within us. It's up to us to control it.
What if I can't?
Michael Morbius. You've been given a gift.
Not exactly.
Time to let go of what you used to be. Discover who you're meant to be.
All our lives we've lived with death. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change? Just accept who you are.
The bad guy.
Morbius.
Holy water? Really?
Yeah. You ever see Lost Boys?
Story of my life.
A new Marvel Legend arrives exclusively in movie theaters April 1st.
Hello everybody, and welcome to my movie review for Morbius. Now, we have a lot to get into in this. This movie. I love-hate this movie. And the love side is very minimal. And the love side of this movie is really put down to just alone Matt Smith. I am a gigantic Doctor Who fan, and Matt Smith was, the first place I saw him was Doctor Who. He is such a good actor. He has such a wide range ability just to act in general that he for sure steals this movie. I listened to someone else's review from YouTube recently. I don't remember the channel name. I'm going to try to find that out here so I can at least credit them. But he said that, you know who should have played Morbius? Matt Smith. And I 100% agree. I think that Morbius should have been played by Matt Smith. I think that would have made 100% true. 3C Films is the channel, by the way. 3C Films. And I think he would have made a much better Morbius. More interesting. His character was more interesting. And he is just having fun. And there are plenty of sequences in this movie where he is just having a blast. And it's great to see an actor like Matt Smith, who is not really as big in the United States as in probably England. But it's amazing. He's such a good actor. And I will be getting this movie just because of Matt Smith. Everyone's pushing Jared Leto as Morbius. I don't really care. To be honest, you could have removed Jared Leto from this movie and it wouldn't have made a huge difference. And I think part of the problem with this movie was delayed 2 years. You know, this movie was meant to come out before Spider-Man No Way Home came out. And your problem with this now is it's after the math, you know? After the math, after. It's in the aftermath of that movie. And at this point, so much has changed that anything you were planning on doing with certain characters doesn't really help. It doesn't really... You can't fit this in nicely. And personally, that's where this movie kind of falls apart mostly, is the after credits scenes. They don't fit in. This character doesn't align with the way that they wanted the character to head at the end of this movie. And also, if you've seen this movie, and if you know of the Twilight series, this is Marvel's Twilight. Okay? I'm not going to say why, but just you watch it. If you know Twilight, look into it. Now, the trailer you saw previously was the original trailer. Not the original trailer, the final trailer, sorry. The original trailer we put at the end, and here's the reason why. The trailer is very, very misleading. So I'm leaving the one at the end because some of it's true and some of it's not. There are Spider-Man connections, but they're very minimal compared to what they were planning. Daily Bugle pops up a lot. So they're giving hints that this is in a Spider-Man universe, but they had things like an Oscorp tower. And I personally, what I believe is they think they were originally going to have Dr. Michael Morbius work at Oscorp. But they decided to change that to whatever the company was called in this movie. I don't remember what it was called, but they changed it. And it's very bad marketing and very misleading to put out a trailer with all these connections in it and then don't use them. And I have to say this as well. This movie should have been released in January. The movie would have done better. It would have had a bigger reception after just the incredible hype and how everyone loved Spider-Man. Sure, people would have still hated this movie, but it would have done better. I personally do not think this movie is going to do well, especially now, and I think it'll be overshadowed next week by Sonic, and then it'll kind of just fall on the wayside pretty fast. I mean, I have to just say, Sony had no faith in this movie. And I have two very big pieces of evidence for you. If you look at the poster, and one of the many posters, the tagline for this movie isn't some vampire pun or doctor pun. You know, they could have done something with blood as a joke in the tagline. The tagline is, "A new Marvel legend arrives." Not a single movie that, as far as I'm aware of, in the Marvel universe has had to say it's a Marvel character. You know, other than saying Marvel, you've never really had to push the fact that Marvel characters were Marvel. That to me screams, please come watch our movie. We put a lot into this. I know it's been delayed, but please come watch it. We're desperate. We want you to come watch this movie. And to me, that screams, oh, this company is not caring about this film in the slightest. They want to put it out, they want to make some money off of it, and they want to leave it behind them. And personally, I think that's what they want with this film. They want to make it into a huge thing, but it's such a mess at this point. They 2 years, I think this movie's been delayed. It was supposed to come out well before No Way Home was, but in the aftermath of No Way Home, I hate to say it, but this movie doesn't really fit. And that's why I think they were going to release it in January, and then they were like, you know what, we want to delay this. They wanted Spider-Man to do more, and I think that Spider-Man would have still done more if they had not delayed this movie. And the second thing that makes me think that Sony does not care about this movie is the fact that they publicly spoiled all of the connections to Spider-Man on Twitter. Somebody who was involved with this movie either was doing a Q&A session or something and just spoiled everything publicly. And personally, on that front, that makes me scream, hey, there are Spider-Man connections. Come watch the movie. You know you want to. You'll enjoy the Spider-Man connections. This will be integral in our future of Spider-Man. Feeding off of the hype that Spider-Man had, which I don't know if that will cause anyone to come watch this movie, but I don't know if it will. And third thing, there was this big set of rumors that were going around, and it wasn't like one channel on YouTube. It was a lot of channels on YouTube were talking about the fact that all of the Spider-Man connections got cut out of Morbius. And it was pretty weird because I can confirm that to not be true. But at the same time, why was it such a widely spread thing? I don't know if that was just people assuming or if there was something that actually came out from Sony maybe saying they cut it all, maybe trying to see if that was a better option. Maybe they had 2 cuts of the film, one with the Spider-Man connections, one without. And they tried to see if maybe it was a good idea to cut those. You know, maybe there's an alternate cut of this film that exists that they might release without those Spider-Man connections. Personally, I don't think it'll change the film that much. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Do not go see Morbius for Spider-Man connections. It is not worth it. If that's the only reason you're seeing this movie, it is not worth your time. It is not worth those connections because there's not a lot of them. You could wait until this releases digitally, or people do compilations of information on YouTube and you can get those Spider-Man connections on there. There is nothing drastic except 2 after credit scenes that one of them makes semi-sense and the other one does not make any sense in the context of this movie. I mean, neither of them fit in this movie, but the only thing, one of them fits really well with the aftermath of No Way Home. A little bit. Fits decently well with that. But the other one doesn't. You know, it comes out of nowhere and kind of traits in the character we know at the end of this movie doesn't fit with that after credit scene either. This movie is a mess. They were really hoping to get this movie somewhere good and they waited too long. This movie is definitely not what they wanted it to be. And this is what it makes me so sad. Matt Smith is such a good actor, and he tried his hardest in this movie, and he did a great job. And he's thrown in this huge mess. He's thrown into this entire thing. This is probably the biggest movie that Matt Smith is in, and probably will be in for a little while. If not, maybe the biggest that he'll be in. And the reason I say that is, he was in another movie recently, which I did like, called Last Night in Soho. But that movie was also not like a very super big title movie. It didn't play in the biggest of theaters, and it wasn't as widely known as Morbius is. Not due to lack of promotion, just due to lack of big studio, or due to the fact that it was a smaller film in general. Morbius is a Marvel film. Despite everything, it is more along the lines of Sony Marvel, like Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 kind of movie to me. And I don't dislike those movies, but there was a certain way that those were made, and this feels a lot more in that aspect than in like current Marvel movies, or like Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. I think that's what the second one was called. Stuff like that. Some of their older movies, this feels more along those lines of, which people typically don't like a lot of those movies, or it's a guilty pleasure kind of movie to watch. It's a movie where they'll go and watch it once a year or ever occasionally, and it'll just be completely stupid, but they'll like it. And for me, this might be that one, but not because of the reason that they wanted it to. It'll be because of Matt Smith. He steals the show greatly, and every scene he's in, I believe him, and his character is reasonable. And honestly, I think we got a little bit more backstory behind his character Milo, which is not his actual name. If you've seen the movie, you'll understand. Then we do Jared Leto. Then we do Morbius. We get very little backstory on them. There's actually half of a sequence that was from the trailer I think I was like, oh, that must be Morbius as a kid. But no, Morbius actually is removed from, it's just a couple of minutes, but it's a scene where a kid gets beat up. It's in the trailer. I think it's in the trailer, at least. The kid in the movie, though, is Milo. It's not Morbius. We get more backstory to the villain than we do to the main character. And that's that's good for me because I like Matt Smith, but that doesn't really suit the movie all that well if you're trying to make your main character the focal point of your movie. And I feel like Jared Leto just kind of gets into movies with kind of not the best luck with Suicide Squad 2016 and now Morbius. I don't think he's necessarily a terrible actor. I just think that he didn't fit in this movie. They wrote the character bad. There's a really stupid joke. This whole Milo thing is not the character's actual name. It's what Morbius called him the first time that he saw him, because that's just what he called everybody at the place that he was at. And his roommate, I guess you could say, is what he always calls his roommate. And then you leave and say, oh, new Milo, and just called him Milo. We get no backstory to why he called him Milo. And then later in the movie, once they get to current day, it just he just accepts the name, which just kind of come back around, but not in enough way to pay off. So the writing's kind of sloppy. I'm wondering if they cut out stuff. Like a director's cut of this movie with more detail might make me like it more. But the only reason I want it is due to Matt Smith. And also, the sequence in the trailer, it's in multiple ones, where he cuts his hand and puts it up to a thing and all the bats come flocking around him. That's in the movie. But I'm pretty positive that in the movie, they do a cut back. They do a, They do a flashback. So it says 24 hours earlier. Maybe it says 24 hours later, but I'm pretty sure it said earlier or something like that. And I guess I need to see again to be sure, but if it says earlier, they never come back to that scene again. They never incorporate that into the movie at all. And it's just a really cool sequence that they just wanted to include in the movie because they could. And if it doesn't say flashback, if it's not saying that this was in the past and now we're going to the future, which even if it was, it doesn't really fit because that's not how he gets his powers in the movie. So I don't know what the point of that was. And we know for a fact that in the movie, this is, at least supposedly, this is when he is unable to, he hasn't turned himself into Morbius yet. He's just, Michael Morbius. Morbius is his last name. So he's not the vampire Morbius. He's just Michael at the time, from my understanding. So I don't know how that fits into the movie. I think I'd have to watch it again to fully understand. And also, IMDb says this is an action-adventure drama. It has some horror to it too, which I like because I got a very much Scream kind of vibe from this movie at points, especially involving around the Milo character in a couple of sequences. It's kind of like Scream, except you know who the killer is, if that makes sense. Because there's a way they shoot the Scream sequences where, your character's introduced, and then it kind of comes back around, and then they end up dead. Kind of a deal, if that makes sense. And there are a couple of sequences like that. There's a really cool horror sequence that's in the trailer, but it's like the only horror sequence. And this movie really should have been R. They wanted it PG-13 for the wider audience range, but there's a sequence in the movie where some guy gets his throat cut and nothing's happening. It just looks like he's holding his neck. Like you're not seeing any blood because they can't show the blood. If they show the blood, it'll change the rating. And it makes it not really all that good either. And that's kind of the problem with this movie in general, is that it's rushed, thrown together, and isn't that good. But do I recommend seeing it? If you like Matt Smith as an actor, watch it. You'll enjoy it. You should enjoy it enough to like him in the movie. To be satisfied and say, hey, I like that enough. He was really good. I will probably never watch this again, but I'm glad that I saw him in this role. And again, I feel so bad for him because he's such a good actor. And same thing with David Tennant. David Tennant's biggest movie is probably going to be Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, but he's barely in that, and no one associates that movie with him. The only connection between David Tennant and Matt Smith is Doctor Who, so that's why I'm rounding it up. But those two actors are really good, but they're not in a whole lot, and they're not really shown. It does seem like Matt Smith will be in House of the Dragon TV series filming. He'll be in like 10 episodes, which is pretty cool. I do want to watch some other things that he's been in that I haven't seen. I would love to see it. He was in Terminator Genesis, Pride and Prejudice, and Zombies. Doctor Who was like mostly his starting point. And he started in 2006 and did some things that were unknown until he was in a Doctor Who video game in 2010. When did he start Doctor Who? 2010. So yeah, in 2010 he started. Okay, that makes sense. But anyway, my point just being, this movie isn't as good as they wanted it to be. And I do not think Jared Leto was the best pick for this character. I think, agreeing with 3C Films, I believe that was the channel name, it should have been Matt Smith. But Matt Smith isn't a title-grabbing headline actor. I wouldn't necessarily say Jared Leto is a big headline pull actor either, but he's bigger. And he had his run in DC, and now he tried Marvel, and it just didn't really work out for him. Will he continue his reprising roles? I don't know. I don't know if he'll reappear in this, because I'm going to be honest, this movie to me I will forever remember as the Marvel film filled with desperation, and how desperate Sony was for this movie to do well. If this movie doesn't do well, I don't feel like they can do other movies that, like they're expecting this one that has to do so much in order for them to continue on with their Spider-Man plan. But they need to be more like Disney Marvel in the sense they need to not be afraid to do things. And they need to not be afraid to, when you have a bad movie, stop it and do reshoots. Rewrite the movie. Make the movie good. There is slight problems with Venom. Both Venom movies, partially due to the fact that Venom should be rated R. But the way that it's filmed makes the PG-13 rating at least more adequate. Because, you're not seeing anybody getting slit in the throat. And there's a lot of that in certain sections of this movie where you're seeing people getting like cut up, and you're just like, but something's missing. This doesn't feel right. And it's taking you out of that movie. You're like, no. But yes, no. Yes. Until Matt Smith really gets involved, and then I was just distracted. And again, I might be hyping up Matt Smith a bit much for some people's dislike or anything, but he's the best part of this movie. And here's the thing. On IMDb, here's another thing. Top cast. Michael Keaton is listed above Matt Smith. Jared Harris and Adria Arjona, I don't know how to pronounce hers, but even her and Jared Leto and even Jared Harris should not be above Matt Smith. Matt Smith is like the second or third most reoccurring actor in this movie. He really should not be fourth or fifth on this list. Why is he? Because he's not as big of a title. He probably got paid less than most of these other people, even though he's in the movie about 10 times longer than most of these. Right? Like, that's... You know, and again, IMDb, I don't really know if it's, like, that, you know, that good thing to go off of, because I know it can be changed. But he's not anywhere near the top stars, even though he's in the movie a lot of the time. And again, I hate every time I'm on this page and there's an ad for Morbius on IMDb page above the poster, and the tagline is "A new Marvel Legend arrives." There's no tagline for this movie other than "A new Marvel Legend arrives." And it's not a good tagline. Franchises, DC doesn't say, you know, when the Batman came out, they didn't say "A new Dark Knight rises." Maybe they did. I don't know. I should probably check. But I don't think they did. And even that is a better tagline than "A new Marvel Legend arrives." What's the tagline? I'm vengeance. And even then, the way that they did that movie just it just. I'm trying to see the tagline. It's just the Batman. It didn't even really have a tagline. I mean, this one has "I am the shadows," but my point is just this. Not a lot of movies, and very little movies in cinema will, especially if they're part of a franchise, will even reference the franchise or the comic book series. So, like, if I go to Harry Potter as an example, I do know that not Goblet of Fire. One of them was Something Wicked This Way Comes. So yeah, first one was "Let the Magic Begin." Second one, "Dobby has come to warn you, sir." I don't really think that's a tagline. Third one, "Something Wicked This Way Comes," which is probably the best tagline. Fourth one, "Dark and difficult times lie ahead." Fifth one, "The rebellion begins." Sixth one, "Dark secrets revealed." Seventh one, "Nowhere is safe." Eighth one, "It all ends." But that Harry Potter series doesn't even reference, those taglines don't reference the movie, and not so you know, like, Let the Magic Begin. That's on the first poster. Something Wicked This Way Comes is on Prisoner of Azkaban's poster, I believe. But again, these taglines, and again, you might say, oh, well, it's a Marvel film. It doesn't, you know, it's not like those movies in tagline form. This movie doesn't have a real tagline, and that's it. This movie doesn't have a real tagline. I refuse to let A New Marvel Legend Arrives be the tagline for this movie. The tagline for a movie is supposed to entice you. A New Marvel Legend Arrives doesn't entice me. So again, sorry, I know I've gone on a bit of a rant, but would I recommend this movie? Depends. If you want to see Matt Smith, or you've seen him in Doctor Who, you didn't like him, but you liked the way he acted, you know, his acting chops, if you will, check out this movie. If you don't think he's a good actor, you probably aren't going to like this movie. If you don't like Jared Leto, you probably aren't going to like this movie. I don't hate him. I don't like him. I don't think he fit in this movie at all. And this movie just reeks of desperation to me. And I'm sorry, but, you know, hopefully Sony will take a lesson from this movie. And if it does well, good, great. I'll be happy for them. Just do better in the future. Because this movie is not the greatest. I'd probably give it about 3 stars, 2.5 to 3 stars. And most of that stars is, again, Matt Smith. But A New Marvel Legend doesn't arrive. I do not think Morbius would be counted as a Marvel Legend. But anyway, that's going to do it for this review. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned if you want to see the original trailer. Because it's probably going to have some things that are cut out of the movie. So that's why I threw it at the end. The final trailer will be the most accurate to the movie that you will get trailer-wise. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor. I should have died years ago.
People all over the world have my disease.
I'm here to find a cure. We have to push the boundaries, take the risks. If you're gonna run, do it now.
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
When you're a stranger,
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
faces look ugly. When you're alone,
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew. I went from dying to being more alive than ever.
It worked.
Not exactly. I have increased strength and speed, and some form of bat radar. What else can I do?
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of me. It wants to hunt and consume blood.
Michael.
when you're a stranger, faces come
And you control it.
I don't know.
Half the city wants to kill you.
remembers your name.
We haven't had anything this good since that thing in San Francisco.
When you're strange,
The other half wants to control you.
Hey, Dr. Mike, you and I should stay in touch.
I'd do anything to save a life. But I don't know what I'm capable of.
You save lives, you don't take them. Are you here to heal the world? Or to
destroy it.
Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.